hello, and welcome to Planning Around again with me and Stroud. And I hope that this week you have found some time to laugh, think, and play because you know it does make you feel better. And lovely listeners, lovely viewers, you know that I chat to some awesome, interesting, fabulous people from all around the world. Well, let me just tell you, lovely people, we are in for a treat because this week we are going to be planning around again. That's enough. We're going to be curling around sustainability. We talked about CDC. Hello, lovely soul. How are you?
I'm good, Emma. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is. I am so excited that we get to chat about something that I don't know very much about, but you do. And I remember when we were chatting, so lovely listeners, lovely viewers, we actually have had conversations before. And when we were chatting last, I was like, I have to get this woman on the pod because, oh my word, your world is amazing. Now, before we get into that, everybody always likes to know, because we're all a bit lazy, where in the world are you today?
So I'm based in London. I am actually in the offices. So I work for Pal Fishman and I'm in Baker Street at the moment.
With riding away to Baker Street, other songs are available. Yeah. So if you're listening, so Baker Street obviously has Sherlock Holmes, has all of those kind of things. So if you're listening internationally, it's very central, very lovely. And we are recording this as London basks in a heat wave for the second time, right?
Absolutely. Second, third, I read somewhere it's probably the third, and who knows how long it's going to last.
Okay.
And it's very interesting that we're going to talk about sustainability because, climate change is real. Like I still deal with people at times where I've got to explain to them, but you can see the effects of what's happening. We had the crazy floods last year in the UK, in Europe as well. We've been going through this heat wave over and over again, and this is not a chance event. This has been happening for many, many years now. And lovely people, climate change is real.
Yeah.
We're out together.
Yeah, it really is. And for those of you that are watching this, you will be very smart and see that I'm not in my studio where I normally am because I'm doing this at home because at home I've got an aircon unit. And these are the things. And and there's a bit of me going, aircon unit's not good for the planet either. And it's like, anyhow, we digress. So now.
It's a balancing act.
It is a balancing act.
I'm in an air-conditioned office. I'm not at home. I would have loved to do this from home, but there is air conditioning in the office. And unfortunately, that's the world we currently live in. But there are a lot of sort of sustainable ways to do this as well. But it does take a lot of infrastructure upgrades and developments, which obviously adds more negative carbon, etc., to the planet. So we'll just make do with what we have, I suppose.
Oh my goodness me. And this is why sustainability, you open the door and it's like, oh my gosh, how many rooms behind that door are there? Now, all my regular listeners and viewers will of course know that I always ask my brilliant guests a series of questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
I love it. I want you to picture the scene. There we are on stage. The audience is sitting there going, exciting. They've got their iced lattes and they're sipping them and just gently chilling. We come on stage. There's some music playing. It's been loud. There's been some smoke billowing. Don't know why there's smoke billowing, but there has. You're there sitting on a comfy sofa, and then I come, small thing, and then the lights go down. The audience are like, "Whoa, sustainability!" Question number one: what does sustainability mean to you?
So, for those of you viewers who may not necessarily know what sustainability is, or the textbook definition. The textbook definition of sustainability is basically it's a practice of using resources to meet the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. So basically, whatever you're using right now, do so in a sustainable way, be responsible, just make sure that you leave something behind for your kids and the future generation. So that's what sustainability generally means. For me, sustainability, and I've been working within sustainability for a best part of over 20 years now. For me, it's about legacy and stewardship. It's recognizing that we are only temporary custodians of the planet, the places, the resources that we've been entrusted on, and we all have been entrusted these things. Whether that's a project, an organization, a community, a landscape, or even social sustainability, a relationship that we've built. I believe that we all have a sort of a moral responsibility to leave things better than we found them. So it's all about growth As I've progressed through my career, I've realized that sustainability isn't really about preserving the status quo. It's about helping people become stronger, more resilient, and be prepared for what's to come next. And as we kind of started talking about that we're in a heat wave and everything, this is, all of these things are happening. Like I said, climate change is real, all got to be working together. And for me, sustainability is also not a single person's job. It's a community. It takes a herd basically to kind of be sustainable and create sustainable spaces.
I love that. And, it's funny, even though that word is being bandied around and I, have my own ideas of it, I've never heard it framed in such a clear and concise way. And actually, I think there's something about the choice of language that we use because, words are now weaponized, right? And, it's, and things that are actually a thing for good are then quite twisted. And actually, it's just like, just take a moment, take a beat and actually really explore what it means.
Yeah.
And I love that idea about legacy and herd and community and people coming together and just thinking, like, what do you want for your kids and your grandkids, And I think, I mean, it's almost like this is why I wanted you on the pod because you're going to get everybody thinking, I mean, shock horror. So the audience are clapping their hands. They're like, it's brilliant. They're sipping their latte still. And then we move on to question number 2. And if sustainability was a country, what country would it be?
Oh, I think I would have loved to say that, there is this one country currently in the world. Look at it. This is your model of what sustainability means. But unfortunately, there isn't.
Right.
And so, because, this is a podcast and I get to be creative. And so I think for me, if sustainability was a country, I'd probably create a new one.
Amazing.
And you take the best bits from several others and try and create a space that is safe and secure and kind and loving and sustainable for everybody. So I'd take something like the Scandinavian countries' commitment to sort of long-term thinking, social equality, clean energy innovation. So if you look at the example of Norway is renowned for its renewable energy systems, particularly their move to hydropower and EV adaptation, so electric vehicles adaptation. Denmark for its wind energy, its district heating, integrated renewables. Sweden is another Scandinavian country which is often cited for its low carbon energy, its circular economy thinking, and just prioritizing people. So I'd take a bit of the Scandinavian countries.
I love it.
I would then borrow Costa Rica's remarkable story of being one of the most compelling examples of nature recovery. So Costa Rica has reversed the effects of deforestation completely. It's the first country in the world who's done that. And also proving that economic success and environmental restoration can actually go hand in hand. So there'll be a bit of Costa Rica in there as well. And then I'd also take Bhutan, which is the world's only carbon negative country. So Bhutan's belief that real measures of progress aren't just wealth, but it's actually the well-being of people and community. And so and I'm sure there are lots of other countries as well. And, there's some examples within the UK where we're doing lots of like small things. I think these sort of examples are models that should and can be adopted. What I love about those examples is that they remind us that sustainability isn't about just protecting the environment. It's creating a future where people, nature, prosperity can all thrive together. Not competing against each other,
Right.
but actually living in harmony.
Right.
And if you combine the best of all of those countries, you'd have pretty much a close understanding of what my vision of sustainability is.
Oh, my word. I love that. And you see, interestingly, when I was thinking about this, there was a part on Jeremy Clarkson's farm, and this hope is like, oh my word. So this was, I don't know if you've seen it, and when you love hate Jeremy Clarkson or whatever, that program has done quite a lot for awareness of farming, right? Not all good,
Yep.
parking lots. But he went over to Rotterdam. This is the only sustainable story that I have, so I'm very proud of it, and I wanted to share it with you. And he went over to Rotterdam, and they basically, in the city, have a dairy farm that is completely sustainable. So on the river, they have some cows living on this metal sort of what looks like a car farm, for one of a description, right? And a dairy farm, and you think, but the cows don't get to walk around. Oh yeah, they've got complete freedom. And then they go over, and when they feel like they weren't ready to be milked, robots will do it. The milk then goes down, and then once the milk goes down, then the milk then lower in underneath the river. Then they make cheese because it's all at the temperature because of the river, right? Then the manure that they take then goes out, and then they put that on the grounds around everything that is near in the city. Then all of the food waste that Rotterdam produces comes and feeds the cows. And so in essence, this is its own little sustainable
ecosystem.
Exactly. And I was like, that is the best thing I've ever seen. Cows are happy, people are happy, completely sustainable. And they said it's actually beyond carbon neutral, it's actually carbon good. I don't know what that means, but
it is.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my one sustainable story. So I was like that.
Brilliant.
Check me. I've watched a program. So it's very good. The audience are giving them a round of applause. They're like, Ellen, get back onto point. I'm like, producing in my ear. Come on, Ellen, get to the next thing. So who makes you think of sustainability? So who makes you think of it?
I think for me, there are many people, but I have to start from the start. I think for me, it's my grandparents and my parents who sort of taught me, my brother, my cousins and everybody, first-hand concepts of what organic farming means and what best practices within water and resource conservation mean when they took us to our mango orchards. So I was born in India. And for your Indian listeners, they will completely understand that we have mango orchards and we're very proud of it. But this is, I'm talking like more than 40 years ago. That's when they did organic farming. So I learned firsthand that interaction between human and environment and how we should be taking care of where we grow. So that's one of the examples. While growing up as well, my parents were very conscious of not necessarily wasting anything. They would repair things, they would reuse things, they would look after the community would look after us. So many of the behaviors that we are trying to encourage today in the world and in the spaces that we live in was basically simple common sense to the previous generation.
Right.
So that's sort of, for me, that's who comes to mind immediately. But then I think I would be wrong and doing a disservice if I do not take this person's name, Sir David Attenborough. Not because he talks about sustainability directly, but because he spent decades helping people fall in love with the natural world. You see, people protect what they value.
Right.
And he has inspired generations to value the planet that we live in.
Yeah. I so agree.
But then, but then on a day-to-day basis, for me, it's also the people that I work with. I work for a consultancy, an engineering and design consultancy. And so for me, it's the engineers, the planners, the project managers, my team, my sustainability champions within the company. So it's all of these people. So sustainability isn't necessarily created by famous environmentalists. I mean, they are brilliant at spreading the word. David Attenborough, Jane Goodall, there's so many names, Greta Thunberg. They're all sort of doing a lot to spread the awareness and knowledge, which is very, very important. But everyday sustainability is, in my opinion, actually delivered by the people making thousands of practical decisions that shape the communities that we live in. So, yeah, a variety of people.
I love all of them. And of course, they will have all shaped you in your work and your thinking, right? And you're so right, because it is that thing of sustainability and the planet. Obviously they go hand in hand. And it's this whole idea of, I wonder how and why we've become so disconnected from being part of the world, and being part of nature. Everybody knows, if you go out to nature, you feel better. If you're in nature, put down the tech and everything else like that. And it is just that thing of going, we're tiny, and sometimes, like you go to the beach or you go to the mountains or you go to the forest or you go out and you suddenly realize how small we really are.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just mind-boggling, but it's about reminding ourselves. And I remember I did a talk at a big conference a while ago, and there was a fabulous guy, and actually he came on the podcast quite a long time ago, and his name's Mark, and he was the director of science from the Worldwide Fund for Nature. And he said something that really struck with me about sustainability. And it was like, when you throw it away, where is away?
Yeah.
Away in the Western
Mm.
world generally means you can't see it.
Mm.
But actually, it's gone somewhere. And that has always stayed with me of like, actually, how are we doing things to make it more sustainable? How, when you throw something away, I'll just get rid of that. It's going to have a cost, somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And we have to just be aware of it and do the things that we all can do. Oh, gosh, you're very good. You set me off on tangents, make me think about all these different people. And so question number, no one cares. What song is sustainability?
Oh, hmm. This is a very interesting one. There's so many, the first one that comes to mind immediately is sort of, The Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Or sort of the Michael Jackson songs, Heal the World, which is Michael Jackson Collective, because there are lots of artists coming together. That actually is a really good one because, as I was saying earlier, sustainability is not one person's job. It takes a herd, it's a collective. And Heal the World is a really good example of how different artists came together to sing and kind of express for a great cause. And then there's also, Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Mavin and Tammy. So there's quite a few, but the one that I like the most is Three Little Birds by Bob Marley. So you see, that song, the message isn't don't worry about your problems, but the way I see it, it's about hope and optimism. So sustainability especially can feel quite overwhelming. It can feel quite isolated at times. But real progress happens when people believe that change is possible. And that's what we try to do day to day. Kind of, we go into the projects, we meet with our clients, we kind of show them the vision of what can be possible if you start adopting sustainable practices. And it's not just because you'll be able to deliver a scheme properly and you'll get planning application or whatever. You're also saving a lot of cost, which sometimes can be very important to certain clients. And I understand that. So it's that. And I think the song also has a really positive energy that reminds us that, the future is not something that happens to us,
Yeah.
but it's something that we create.
Yeah.
And let's face it, anything in Bob Marley's voice and his tunes are just filled with positivity and hope.
I mean,
And so,
yeah.
and that's something we need so much more of, especially in the world that we currently live in. So yeah, Three Little Birds.
Well,
Don't ask me to sing it.
no, I'm not going to ask you to sing it. But I love it, and I will add it to the Spotify playlist. So, of course, regular listeners will know there is a Spotify playlist of all songs that have come up to all of my brilliant guests on Planning Around. So go on Spotify and you can listen to it. It is the most eclectic playlist known to mankind, and Three Little Birds will be on there, and it wasn't on there, so thank you very much. I love it. If sustainability was an object, what object would it be?
Oh, this one's very simple. For me, it would be a compass.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
A compass doesn't necessarily tell you exactly how to get somewhere, but it helps you navigate complex decisions and continue to head in the right direction. The moment you start moving, it just starts going.
I love
And
that.
so, sustainability isn't sort of a destination that you have to reach. It's a direction that you need to choose. So for me, it would be a compass.
I love that, and I think but this is I don't know, episode 250 plus. No one has ever said compass, so I love it. It's like, yes, I love that as a compass. I love that as an idea. Fabulous. And now, obviously, you work in sustainability, you've got a big job and everything else like that. So how do you look after you? What do you do to look after you?
I think the one thing I've learned, working in just life in general can get quite difficult and busy, at times. So I've learned that, you cannot lead sustainability sustainably if you're running on empty. And so I try to take regular breaks. I make time to do things that actually energize and stimulate my mind. And that could look like going for walks. I do a lot of yoga and meditation. I love going to the cinema, to the theater. So I'll do that. Reading, traveling. Oh my God, I love traveling. And most importantly, spending quality time with friends, family, loved ones.
Amazing.
I've realized that some of the best ideas have arrived when I've been away from my laptop. And so looking after myself isn't about doing less. It's about making sure that I actually have the energy and the perspective to do things that matter the most. So I think the older that I'm getting, I've realized that recovery is not necessarily a reward for hard work. It's actually a part of it.
Absolutely.
So
I would so concur. And I love that. You know, it's that thing of rest is conscious. And when rest is conscious, actually, we feel better, you know, and it shouldn't get to that place where you're so exhausted that you are exhausted. And actually, rest is the thing that will stop you getting there. Oh, very good. How do you play? How do you play?
how do I play? Oh my God, I play by exploring.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
like I was saying, I love traveling.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So traveling, discovering new places, trying different foods. I am borderline vegan.
Okay.
So when I say borderline, I am because I like I said, I grew up in India, so milk was a part of everything that we would eat and drink. And but I moved to the UK over like 20, 21, 22 years ago,
Hmm.
and I developed lactose intolerance.
Oh.
But I love cheese. So that story that you were talking about earlier, Jeremy Clarkson's farm and the cheese that was produced there, it's like, oh my God, I love my cheese. So that's why borderline vegan. So I always have sort of my lactose intolerant tablets with me every time I travel. So it's that traveling, you know, trying on different food, but also sort of getting lost in conversations with interesting people. When I travel, I wouldn't. Sure, I'll do the sort of, you know, this is a famous place and it's a tourist destination. You have to go and do this. I'll do those things. But for me, the more important thing is going and sitting at a cafe, talking to sort of the local vendors, you know, just trying to kind of learn a bit about the life and their culture and everything.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
You
That gives me
are
a lot of joy.
true explorer. So, you know, regular listeners will know that I've identified that there's 12 ways that adults play. And one of the ways that we play is exploring, you know, and it's that travel and that, you know, literally just going out and seeking out and being curious, you know. And so finally,
Absolutely.
because the audience have finished their iced lattes and they're loving it still, but they've got one final question before we let that audience go. What or who makes you laugh?
Oh God, my friends,
Okay.
my siblings, my cousins, you know, they make me laugh all the time. Like we've all become responsible adults, you know, with jobs, with mortgages, with impressive sounding titles or whatever. But when we are together in just about 5 minutes of meeting up, we're usually laughing about the same thing, the same ridiculous jokes from like 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yep.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
I also love the humor that comes from travel and sort of the life's unexpected detours. So, you know, um, I you're traveling and you've gone onto the wrong train or you trip somewhere. I try to find humor in everything. And so, yeah, I think it's people and situations.
I mean, there's a reason why we get on, right? It's like,
Exactly.
and the world can be, you know, the world can be tough, and the world is a hard place and things, you know, and I think
Absolutely.
it is always. I mean, obviously, I would say this, but it is about remembering that we can find the joy and we can find the laughter and we can do all of that because then we feel better, and that's what we can actually do into our job. So yes, the audience have
Absolutely.
finished their ice lattes, they put them down, they're giving it a round of applause. The stage has disappeared, and it's now just you and me having a chat. And so I love the fact that it was from your grandparents and then your parents that then started your journey into sustainability. And then sort of professionally, what surprised you in the last couple of years in the world that you've been, you know, when you're like, oh, that's been surprising, hopefully in a good way. What surprised you in the last couple of years?
I think the acceptance of the fact that yes, sustainability is really important and then we all have to work towards it together. And that could mean from a policy perspective. So the governments are coming up with stronger targets and all the companies have sort of their own sustainability and net zero opportunities and plans and actions that they've identified. Also kind of makes my job slightly easier, where I'm not having to constantly convince people that climate change is real, although I do that with a couple of them.
Yep.
I think it's the way the world's just sort of moving into a more responsible place where, and it could be also because we are seeing the effects of that.
Yeah.
You know, we were seeing extreme weather patterns. We're seeing extreme deforestation, and I think and many more things. And I think it's about people are becoming a lot more conscious. And I think for me, that's what's changed. The policy landscape is changing. People are moving towards the right direction. Sustainability, environmental management is no longer a tick box exercise. It's very front and center of the way we deliver what we deliver at work. So I think there's that. But I think on the flip side, there's also a lot of negative that's been happening. Like this year has been an unfortunate example of how we are constantly at war, or there's so many wrong things that are happening, and we don't want to get into that. We don't want to get into that side of things. But there's that as well. But I call myself a eternal optimist, and so I like to look at things in a positive way. I'll try and find a positive opportunity in everything. So I think it's the general perspective that is shifting quite a lot. And it's not just about saying, oh, yes, absolutely, we should do something within sustainability. People are actually doing things.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is really
And
important.
do you think, and this really is me picking your brains because this is your world, do you think it is possible to shift and use as much AI as the world seems to be wanting to and still being sustainable and an environmental thing? Or does that scare you? Because if there's one bit of AI that really scares me is the cost to the environment of all the data centers and the power. Are there stuff, people, I mean, obviously people think about this, yeah?
Absolutely. Oh my God. We think about this all the time. We've been having major discussions at work as well with regards to, the explosion of AI that has happened over the last year, couple of years now. But now it's become so front and center in everything that we do. And the negative impacts of that. So the data centers that are developed to support the AI that we uses a massive amounts of energy. And it's challenging. There's ways in which we can try and make it a bit more sustainable. We can help clients navigate the complex sort of environmental challenges and the planning challenges around it. But the truth is, yes, it does have a really negative impact on the environment. That's why we probably need more of Costa Rican sort of examples of where you're planting more trees, you're creating these natural sinks to absorb all of the negative carbon and the energy that's coming out of it, to give people a fighting chance.
Yeah.
But also, the one thing is, and this is something we were talking about yesterday at work, AI is currently out there and everybody's talking about AI. 6 months down the line, there'll be something else.
Oh.
The world is rapidly changing. And so I don't think that AI is sort of the biggest and the only challenge we have right now. There could be more challenges that may come in the future.
Yeah.
But I think it's about understanding that we've got to work together collectively to try and find the most optimum solutions around the problems that we are creating for ourselves.
Exactly. And to go back to something you said earlier is that whole idea about balance, us humans, we want to progress in inverted commas. We want more, we're growing and it's always about growth, etc. And actually we've then got to find, okay, so how do we counterbalance that? What do we do in order to do that? And so if somebody was listening, right? And I'm going to make it, as opposed to very big in AI and everything else like this, if there was a couple of things that an individual could go, right, this would help with sustainability of the planet. What do you think would be very simple things that one person could do? What would be the thing that you would suggest?
I think just understand and accept that it's your responsibility as well, and that every little helps. So simple things at home like recycling, taking out your trash, segregating your waste. Try and find an opportunity to do some gardening, some planting. There's at least in the UK, there's lots of opportunities where you can get involved in community tree planting exercises, where you're giving back, and we at work have volunteering days where we go and do things like this. We do cleanup exercises as well. So there's a lot that you can do. It's also about spreading the knowledge and awareness, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges. People don't necessarily fully understand the negative effects of what we do, because there isn't enough education around it, or it's not a priority. Like there's so many things that we are all going through in life. You know, it
Right.
could be family responsibilities, it could be the cost of living, it could be any damn thing. You know, someone's trying to get a mortgage or whatever. Someone's moving places. So I can understand that at times environment can take a back step.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to say, oh yeah, but the government is doing something. You know, there are these nature groups, WWF or whatever, they are doing things. It's their responsibility. No, it's every individual person's responsibility. So yeah, it's as if look at the planet as your home. You want to live in a clean, sustainable home. You know, you want good food on the table.
Yeah.
You want to stay in a loving environment, in a peaceful environment where there's lots of like positive energy and good vibes inside your little bubble and your little home space. The planet is exactly that, you know, so treat it as your home.
And I love that. And I think you're right, because I think sometimes if you take it that, you know, there's the whole big world and look what's going on, it can be really hard to sort of find your own story within that.
Yeah.
And I think you're
Absolutely.
so right. It's just that thing of just being, just taking the beat, and a tiny difference. If everybody does a tiny difference, that's how we do actually change things and stuff. And I was,
Absolutely.
you know, I was thinking through our conversation, I was like, you know, we all know that there's a massive sort of challenge and cost within the clothing industry. And then I was thinking about my son's generation, and he's 14 now, and they are so good at using vintage. Like, I cannot remember the last time we bought something new.
Yep.
And so that whole thing, and now, of course, I'm aware that there's the logistics about things being traveling around and everything else like that. But actually, he, you know, he will buy something, but then he will have sold something. And as he grows, he's, you know, and I cannot remember the last time. And I just was like, those tiny things are actually, that will make a difference, because new clothes,
Absolutely.
you know, and buy something that's really good, and then it will last.
Yep.
Anyhow, you know, there are these little
It's
things,
conscious,
right?
it's just conscious consumption, isn't it? Conscious consumption in, it could be the clothes that you wear or the toys that you buy or the food that you buy as well. Don't waste,
Yeah.
you know, and if you're getting something new, try and get or give, I don't want to say get rid of, but try to move something out as well
Absolutely.
and put it back into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think that's what the whole circular economy principle is, that you're reusing things to the point that it cannot be reused,
Yeah.
but it's disintegrated to the level that it does not negatively impact the environment.
Absolutely. And also within that, and going back to the Rotterdam example, it's like also utilizing local, you know, actually using local.
Absolutely.
And I remember I was chatting to somebody else on the pod, and she was like, for the year, she'd given up Amazon. Other companies are this available. Because actually, she just said, because I don't need something tomorrow.
Yeah.
I actually could wait. Or I could go to a shop, you know, and it's those, and it's those tiny, but on an individual thing that will help us all be more sustainable. Oh, goodness me. I knew I was going to love talking to you, and I have loved talking to you, and you give me ideas and pockets and all of this stuff. So if somebody wanted to follow you and find out more about your work and about your business's work, where should they go? Where can they find out more about you and the business and all of that good stuff?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So, you know, I think I can share. I think we are connected on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, if you want to share that with your viewers, they can find me on LinkedIn. I am on sort of other social medias like Instagram and stuff, but that's a private account. But also our company website. So I work for Pal Fishman, which is, like I said previously, a design and engineering consultancy. And so you can find details on the website as well. I do sort of go and talk at various events, and I've done similar podcasts. And so you can find all of that on sort of
Awesome.
LinkedIn.
So I will make sure that your LinkedIn is there. So if people are interested and curious, then obviously their business's website as well and everything else like that. And I would just like to say thank you so much for coming on Turning Around again. I knew it was going to be joyous. You've given me stuff to think about. You've made sustainability interesting and really pertinent. So please carry on doing what you're doing, because you're an awesome human. And thank you so much for coming on the pod. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, thank you for inviting me. This has been so much fun. I think every time we talk, we just kind of go into
I know, right?
tangents.
Right.
But it's so much fun. So yes, no, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for getting me on here.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I had to stop it there, because I knew that if I asked her another question about sustainability, I was aware that suddenly this podcast was going to be well over an hour. And it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because of course we all know that we need to be sustainable. If you're listening to this, we are doing okay, you know? And it's that thing of, yeah, what can we individually do that can just make a tiny difference? And I really hear her that, yeah, the government are starting to shift things. And ultimately, you know, if I'm lucky enough to have grandkids, I want there to be a planet. You know, and as I say, I'm sitting there in my house with aircon on because there's a heat wave. So we know that we need to become more sustainable. We know that we need to become mindful of it. And we know that little things like, and this sounds really obvious, but it does absolutely blow my mind. You know, when you go to an airport and you fill up one of these, you know, your water bottles, and it says how many plastic bottles that are saved, it just makes you go, so how many millions, if not billions of plastic bottles were we using until somebody went, they don't really disintegrate? It like that sort of boggles my mind. And so honestly, you know, like, and when I was chatting to her previous, you know, pre-doing the podcast, the story, you know, coming from India and working over here and all of the work they do, this is the thing which always gives me hope. Because in a world where we're very good at focusing on what we, you know, the bad stuff, right? Actually, there are some awesome people just like her doing amazing work that is about sustainability, that is about joy, that is about all of the good things. And that's one of the reasons why I do this pod, because it's so important that we highlight and we put a spotlight on the fact that it's not all bad out there, people. I know it can feel like it is, but it's not all bad out there. There are really smart, awesome humans going, how do we make things better? And that's one of the reasons that I do this pod. So I hope this has landed with you. Do make sure you find some time to laugh, think with kindness and play, because you know it does make you feel better. And I will catch up with you next week. This has been Clowning Around again with me and Stroud. Thank you ever so much for listening. Do share, like, comment, subscribe, all those good things. I'll catch you next week. Take good care. Bye for now.